So can I invite, as a moderator of the third session, can I invite Sachin Sharma ji from ITC? Uh, Sachin is here, thank you. Dinesh Abrol ji, please. Thank you. And Nachiket from Asha, please join us. And hopefully Vivek Agrawal ji will also join us because he was the architect who set the ball rolling that we have reached a point where we all have to sit together and discuss things further. Would you want to share something on?
I think that much time is not.
Okay. So we'll try and keep to the time because we've always thought that every 2-minute delay that a moderator like me takes extra, it takes away that much time from the audience. And so I would want to say that on 3rd of April 1955, okay, so we got a message from Vivek Agrawalji that he cannot come, there is urgent work. So we will continue with 3 panelists, but we'll still finish on time. So Bharat Krishak Samaj was established, and this is very important for this session, was established on 3rd of April 1955. Now you can imagine how old it is. But at that time, the forefathers wrote in the objectives to create a platform which creates a common meeting ground where everyone interested in strengthening food systems can meet. So the word food systems is being used now at the UN, was used in 1955. So I'll repeat it. Everyone interested in strengthening the food systems can meet and put the intelligence, resources, and energy to good use to help those engaged in producing more from the land. So we are also discussing platforms now, but in Pramoji in completely different circumstances. So thank you. Let me welcome the panelists. I'll just sit with them. And so where do we start with? I think so, Abrolji, we'll start with you.
Want me to start?
Yes.
How much time do we have?
You have 10 minutes. I was warned that you would take more than 10 minutes. So.
No, I won't.
But, so.
And if I take...
No, it's not. Well, you can take a few more minutes.
If I take a few more...
Minutes? No, it's all right. Because
minutes or seconds,
not a
you
problem.
have every right to stop the panelists because you are the time, not only timekeeper, you want to ensure that some outcome is also there.
So we're also interested that there's some time for Q&A in this session. So if we finish the panelists.
Do I sit here or do I have to go?
Sir, your choice.
So it's my choice. I have money.
You'll have to hold on to this or I'll hold it on.
No, I will hold on.
There's no problem. Thank you.
Firstly, Ajay, it's been a wonderful date, forenoon and afternoon hopefully would take us to some new alternate path which we need to take. And why I say new alternate path? Because I think digitalization is a reality. It's going to happen. There's no doubt. It's how it's shaped is very critical. Meaning people who are shaping up, they have to really think through the challenge. And in that, whether it's private or whether it is public or whether it is civil society or even I would say, I belong to the world of science. I've come from that particular world, including the ferment which is required. Because we are living in a world where agriculture is in crisis. Everywhere in the world. In the US, agriculture is heavily subsidized, you know that. I have been a good student of WTO. I was involved with the negotiation, both with IPR and the agreement on agriculture and the biodiversity, CBD. So if I look at, when you are looking for a pathway which would provide us solutions, how actually we should be shaping digital becomes very, very critical. So with that preamble statement, if I look back today at the session as it transpired, I have a disappointment, let me say that. And my disappointment is, we should recognize that the last 3 decades, the way agriculture has proceeded, why did we have to talk about the need to double farmers' income? Because the farmers' incomes were declining. If that was not the case, then, if everything was all right, fine, then we wouldn't have recognized that there is a need to actually raise income. And I think Rohin brought that particular point out very well, that even during this particular period, when the government said that farmers' income needs to be doubled, actually the farmers' income declined. That's a reality, isn't so? He quoted the data extensively. I don't need to repeat that particular data. So, and I've been working in the field, even though Kanayan talked about Bayer and Mahindra and others in the context of South India. I've been working in Haryana. And I've just completed a study on what is the current state of affairs. Everywhere it was clear that, leaving aside farmers who were very large, who had 100 acres or more, meaning their operational area was more than that, the rest were all losing. And their costs were going up on the side of inputs to begin with. And digital is going to be used by those very players. And as a result, there is a whole possibility, and it is actually the reality, that there is a redistribution of costs and benefits taking place between the farmers and the companies. Government has to choose. Farmers are asking, government should be on the side of the farmers. But is the government going to be on the side of the farmers, or is the government going to be finding solutions which are still very much aligned with what the company's objectives are? The company's objectives are very clear. As a farmer who's into dairy farming and in Karnal and supplies milk in Greater Noida and so on, etc., he says these companies, I have aligned with them, Bayer, Nestle, etc. He uses the inputs, it's a maize silage. He says, I have no doubt about it, neither they have an extension system. Class 10 pass, who mentioned about it? Somebody has mentioned it. And that's reality as well. They don't take even feedback from the farmers. So the data that is getting generated, firstly, it was getting generated in the public sector, agriculture, research and extension system. There is a tremendous decline. There's virtually a collapse, I would say that. And I'm saying it with a lot of responsibility. In fact, today traders are the sources of information. If that is the case, then one has to talk about not big data, but we have to talk about good data. I'm formulating this thing. See, we are presuming that the good data exists. In fact, good data doesn't exist. Solutions don't exist. If solutions existed, then we won't be in crisis. To assume that the solutions exist and we are just putting together and the digital is only a bridge is not a correct assumption. On that assumption, we cannot build our future path. That's my second point. My third point is that, if you're wanting to increase the resource use efficiencies, at the moment, the kind of work which we will need to do in terms of whether it is with the soil health, whether it is the crop health, the data to be generated, models which we would have to use, in that there will have to be a participation of various stakeholders. At the moment, it is not there. The open appraisal is not taking place of algorithms and data analytics. Let us put them to scrutiny. Tools, before even they begin to be utilized, before, whether it is in NEML or whether it is in AgriBazaar, it's very important that initially how do we start, because we want to succeed. It's very critical technology area. It's going to define the world. The architecture is going to be built around that whole. And let me tell you that all these companies are thinking globally and acting locally. Even one day AgriBazaar and ITC is already global, isn't so?
No, we are.
You are in India. No. Anyway, we'll talk about it, what ITC or other friends are, what they are. They're transnationalizing. They're all looking for global markets. And their what they are actually creating assets through this whole set of efforts that you are now allowing promote in this, which are going to be used elsewhere also, adapted and so on, etc. Many of them. Microsoft will do it, Amazon would do it, even ITC, whether does it or not, is a different issue. So what needs to be clear is that they are evaluated, not only from the point of view of, to begin with, whether they are serving a purpose with regard to actually improving resource use efficiency, because most of them are consumer-centric solutions that at the moment, and that's whether in public procurement, and these are because that's how the, at the moment in e-commerce and so on, etc., is that's the way most of the work is going on. Areas where actually work needs to take place. In MOUs, I was wondering whether we have the presence of the agriculture research institutions. They are at the bottom of the ladder of the very frameworks which have been created in the IDEA framework. See, the kind of work which we will have to do in terms of comparing models and the data, we are not, see, the assumption that data exists, solutions exist, and we will be able to predict. This word precision is deceptive, is misleading. I want us to change the language. If we don't change the language, we will reach the wrong end. And that's what happened. In the 80s, we had begun to talk in Department of Science and Technology. Many of us had started writing about it, the kind of solutions which were needed to get out of the mess that we were getting into in terms of increased cost and the primary productivity declining. And that we required intercropping, we wanted to get out of monocropping, we wanted to, and extreme weather events are going to anyway force us now to do that as far as is concerned. Are the solutions existing? Is there even data existing? Or are we in position to predict? And even if we are in position to predict, are we in position to act? That's why a very different approach is required to build a new roadmap to actually deal with. I don't know if the time is over or not. Take 2 more minutes. Oh, no, you are very generous. So see, so the, if there's been another kind of out here dilemma, I would say. Regulate or not regulate. Firstly, I said, are we fair in way we are going about it? And that was my question from behind to when Siraj was chairing the session. Fairness is already being discounted in the MOUs, as I see. I don't think we are being fair. First mover advantage we are giving to, and that to Microsoft and Amazon and so on, etc. And no countervailing power. The government doesn't exist in the field at the moment. Pramod, I can tell you that, and with due responsibility I'm saying, in the extension system. Traders are the extension agents, or the companies are the extension agent, and that to class 10 pass students. And even we want to hand over soil health, actually at the moment, to college or school students. Soil health itself has to be looked at not from the green revolution-centric models. There's a very different approach required of how soil organic carbon is to be dealt with, as far as it's concerned. If there were ready-made solutions, etc., then there was a question of only promote and delay getting connected through mobile or through cloud. No, the challenge is far more serious if we are looking for digital to play its role and perform its role. My last point, and I'll conclude it with that. System building is required. See, any new innovation, I'm a student of science policies, technology policy. If you look at all, systems have to be transformed. Systems cannot be transformed without actually starting with correct principles. Let us do some reflection on what's happened. Then we'll be able to find solutions. We got to rebalance the relationship between companies and the farmers. Whether government thinks about it or not, farmers will force it. If farmers won't force it, within the political parties there'll be splits because they won't be able to get force. It's going to happen. It's happening already. Punjab is happening, the classic case, where both, if you look at that. So the point which I'm trying to make as far as is concerned, there is a political approach, socio-technical system approach required to building new ways to go digital as far as concerned. And I am afraid we are doing with wrong assumption. The language is very deceptive. Assumptions are very problematic that data exists, solutions exist, and it's only a question of putting them in databases. No, if I wish, if that was the case, by now databases have been there. I'm a trained electronics engineer. Huh? By now we would have really changed the world. Huh? We would have changed the world. We haven't. We haven't. We have actually created more crises in this particular world. Thank you very much.
Dinesh, thank you so much. Before we move on to the next, I would just want to say that I think so, Pramanji, we had one thing missing in today's conference is state representatives, because it's a question that Dinesh has brought up about extension services and traders giving extension. It's a state subject, and that's what I think so. The ministry should now get all the states together to understand the state perspective. I think so that's missing. But in this session, before we move on, I think I want to give an example of what we did in Punjab on data, what we tried to do and we were unsuccessful, and that's got to do with this session is. At the Farmers Commission, we created a software for all pesticide sellers to log in their pesticide sales to farmers in real time where no data was required from the farmer or from the government. Every pesticide sale logged on in real time through a mobile or a computer, and it was a simple software that could have been used by a 10th class pass student. You didn't need to be an expert to log on that software. I mean, but I did not get receptibility from the department to take it through, but I think this is what needs to be replicated through the country, because a lot of what we are talking about is extension services and stuff like that. So digitalization doesn't necessarily have to be central government led. I think so state governments can do a lot if we are pushed to do that.
A very short point, companies are not interested. They don't take feedback. They are not wanting to record transactions in pesticides. It's such that the 8
So,
times more cost of pesticides since last, from 2012 onwards to 2010.
So
It's not a small cost increase.
So we'll go to the next speaker, but I just want to correct you on that. In Punjab, in 4 years with better governance, we reduced pesticide usage by 12%. So I think it is possible if the governance improves. So Sachin ji, thank you so much to come here from ITC. So I'll just frame the questions for you, which I forgot to do with Dinesh ji, and I gave him a free run. And so the questions are, what is the ITC planning to do with the MOU with the Government of India, and how do you think it will benefit farmers, and where do you see farmers going into the future? General questions, but you could dwell on other things you want to. You have 10 minutes, because we want to leave some time for question answers. Thank you.
So I think at the outset, thanks for inviting us. And before I start, I would like to say that I represent the team of eChopal, so which we started 20 years back, and humbly can say maybe the first AgTech, the word was not coined that time, wherein we used that technology, which was internet that time, and started solving some of the core problems. One very simple example how technology can change things has been that when we started working for eChopal, farmers used to get information about prices when they used to reach mandi through their tractor trolley. Then the price discovery used to happen, and they used to sell their crops, and there were various level of expenses and transaction. And then this stock used to go to any next level of user, and then to the processor. So what we did was leveraging the same Mandi Artiya with whom we are working, we converted him as Sanyojak. So he became the service provider, and we put internet in the village, and we started giving prices one day in advance in the village itself. So the price discovery happened in the village. So farmer get to know the right price before he started for the Mandi. And the person who was working with us became a service provider, then the principal of in the supply chain. And that is how the whole revolution started, and we added various dimensions. So technology has many role to play. And so over years, the problems of agriculture, many have been solved, but some problems still remain. Like for example, if I can only restrict myself to the MOU side, we have done the MOU on customized crop advisory POC, proof of concept development, and why it is needed. See, if you see in India, we have reached to high level of production in a lot of crops, but productivities have been still low. And during our experiences with farmer also, we realized that if you very closely work with farmer in his field and give more specific advice, then the productivity of that field increases, and increases 25% to 30-40% also. Therefore, there is a scope, and agriculture research institutes also established it. But when you have to actually do this kind of extension as a mass scale, that personalization is not possible through any channel. So what we feel is that the digitization and leveraging the digital tools can actually enhance the personalization of the extension services, and also it can help farmer doing that kind of crop production which may enable farmer more for precision agriculture, or even enabling food safe cultivation, which is a requirement for say export orientation. So it can enable farmer in many ways: productivity improvement, cost reduction, and can also help in enabling crops the way and then digital crop assaying, market prices at the doorstep with the farmer. So with this background, we started this project of customized crop advisory. Some of the elements which have been worked upon are that customized varietal recommendation. We have taken 2 districts wherein we have e-chopals in Madhya Pradesh to pilot. We have just started in the second phase of with ministry. So it's I think 5 or 6 months now. So first is customized varietal recommendation, which can be based on soil type, irrigation, and time of sowing. Manually to recommend every farmer is very difficult, but digitally it is very much possible, so that farmer can choose the right variety. For example, in Seor district, in an unirrigated land, he can go for a variety which is like 1544, and in an irrigated land he can go say for another variety which is suited for that kind of crop. Second is giving a right crop calendar to each of the farmer basis when he is sowing his crop, what is his type of soil, what kind of sowing data he is, sowing date, etc. Next is the pest and disease management, which can come through remote sensing. You can actually predict both biotic and abiotic stress in the field much before you can actually see in the naked eyes. So that is also possible. You can do this personalization. Then nutrition management. Today soil health cards are there, but how do you translate that into the right nutrition? So in fact, Indian Institute of Soil Science has developed in Bhopal a tool wherein you can actually select the crop, your nutrition, and it can very specifically give what kind of fertilizer and how much you have to give. So those kind of tools are possible. They can be used and given to farmer. Then there are other things like irrigation management, very specific to the farm which farmer is using. Now there are certain data which are required for this. One is like farm practices, on-ground farm practices. They can come from farmers, from FPOs with whom we are working. Even our field staff can enter that. Weather data can come. There are various public and private sector entities. Remote sensing can give the farm monitoring for biotic, abiotic stress. Soil health cards which are already in place, they can provide the exact information on the soil health. Mandi prices are getting published. They can come, farmer can get to know what are the mandi prices in his. So with this data, we have created an app in last 5-6 months, and we have actually rolled out. Having said that, it is not, it is a collaborative work. So we have engaged with Ministry of Agriculture. We have engaged with ICAR Institute, College of Agriculture, Sihor, Indian Agriculture Research Institute in Delhi and Indore, then Indian Institute of Soil Science and State Agriculture Department. So personalized advisory, what is relevant for that region, has been taken from these institutes. We are connecting our farmers. This digital app we are developing, wherein personalization can come through the tech tools. And linkages with the idea stack has not happened. So that is the next phase which we are looking forward. However, and we have started already, taking feedback from farmer, and we have just rolled out. So this is the status of this particular journey of 5-6 months. What I personally feel that the data security, protecting interest of all stakeholders is very, very important, and definitely the government and regulators will take care of that. We have been working from last 20 years with farmers and using different kind of tools, both physical as well as technology. What we feel that if you have a right trust and right mindset to work, there is a possibility of using data in a right way, helping farmers in right way, wherein they can get benefited. And we use 3 principles in our e-chopal which we feel are very important for long-term thing. One is that there is no charge of information. We have never charged anything for information. We provide it completely free. Second thing, there is no obligation to transact. So you give a value to the farmer. If farmer finds any value, it will come to you. Otherwise, there is no obligation to transact. Third thing is you use the farmer and farmer groups, power of entrepreneurs in the villages, so that there is a community trust which can come in and work with the communities for their benefits. If these principles are in place, we feel that you can actually use data in a right way. Also, just to give a parallel example, if you see how today Aadhaar has revolutionized the entire sector, wherein a lot of public and private institutions have taken the data, but there has been a data privacy which is in place, and there are regulations which are there, and therefore data has been used, but it is protected also on those sides. So those kind of things are possible. Next question has been that how farmer will get benefited. So in fact, during our interaction with farmers also, farmers have also expressed the need that they need more personalized advisory which is specific to their farm and their farm conditions. Since land holdings are becoming smaller, physically neither public sector extension nor private sector extension without use of technology cannot do it. But with technology you can do it and you can improvise every year. That is a possibility. Second thing is the early warning signals in farming technology can give. Through human interventions there is a limitation. So for example, if pest attack you can predict before, pesticide may not be required. You can even use other ways of managing it also, like for example biotic ways of managing a pest attack. Another thing is cost saving. A lot of cost saving can come in the farming if the technology and is used in a right way. Yield improvement because of the right advisory happens. We have seen this happening on ground, and there is a lot of need which farmer felt, and these benefits can come. Last but not the least is the right market linkages. Because of this real-time information, farmer can decide where to sell, how much to sell, and when to sell, which is another benefit. Sir, your last question has been the role of farmer in the digital, in the future. What I feel that there will be a lot of active participation from the farmer side, because farmer is not the same farmer what we have seen. Like I've also been working for 20 years, and before that almost 10 years in the education in agriculture sector. There's a lot of things which have changed. Today the young generation farmers aspire for better lifestyle. In fact, if you see 48% of the income in villages are now coming from non-farm sector. So there is a need to increase income in the farm sector. And those who are dependent on farmer, the youngsters, they want to use technology, they want to use new ways of farming. Now we need to provide them the right tools, and definitely participation is going to be much higher. In fact, we are forming, supporting FPOs nowadays. What we see is a lot of youngsters come and they have new ideas. People ask about that, how can I grow more, what different I can grow from the same piece of land. My father has been cultivating soybean in Madhya Pradesh, but can I do say watermelon and papaya? So things are changing, and definitely digital is going to make it happen. Another thing is, in one mobile how many app you can have. How for same farmer should everyone go and collect data 10 times? Can't we have more support, like a farmer ID is getting created? Now say that can be used by say whosoever wants to use it in a rightful way, and the efforts can be minimized and used. Precision agriculture is going to be the way forward. We have global examples wherein small piece of land you can cultivate more. It is going to happen in India, and I think that's where role of farmers and role of technology will be very, very critical. Last but not the least is that the way food consumption is changing in consumer space. Every consumer is more aware and they want to have a safe way of food production. They want to know where my food is being grown and so on. Those things will require traceability and identity preservation. Now, farmers can get higher premium by adopting these kind of farming practices, and this can only come through technology. So both, I think, from the market side, from farmer side, and from an entire competitiveness of the agriculture point of view, I think use of data in a right way for farming, it will be very, very critical. And I think this is one tool which can actually take us to the next wave of agriculture.
Nachiket is next by the time I switch this on. But Pramodji, I think so. One of the suggestions that could come from this event is that you talked about three committees like the steering committee, the advisory committee. I think so that should have representatives of farmer organizations. So so there is better linkage between what farmers want. But Nachiket, before you come, I think so. This is a question I would want. This is not discussed earlier. Is that as working with Punjab and other states, I've seen is that a lot of data is just going to be stolen by the private sector. Not blaming the private sector, but they would be stolen because of bad governance. You may sign an MOU and say that data will not be available. Can the government of India have criminal proceedings for use of data acquired illegally, which is not a part of the thing? So I think that's something that Rohin we can look at. But Nachiket, the question for you is concerns the way digitalization in agriculture is currently taking place, possible alternatives for a future that is in interest of farmers, provided I can start the laptop. So just hold on. ये करेंगे स्टार्ट यहाँ पे रणवीर जी उनको बोलेंगे पीछे लिंक कर दिया but you can start by the time you start. Okay, thank you. So we'll have time for Q&A because there is time. On है पर आ नहीं रहा है signal अभी on किया है. So you can start the signal.
Okay.
The zip file, yeah.
I was just seeing if I can make it bigger, but anyway, that's fine.
Try.
It's coming
It's
on.
coming.
I think just coming on.
I don't know how it happens here. Right?
Yeah. I'll do it.
We'll do that. Or you can
Yeah, I'll
press
just,
through.
yeah, I'll do that.
It's coming.
Anyway, so while it's coming on, I mean, so like I think almost everyone in this room, I'm the group that I represent here, the Alliance for Sustainable and Holistic Agriculture. So we are also not against digitalization, and we are certainly for digitalization. And this needs to be said because very often we sometimes are portrayed as Luddites and, you know, technology ke khilaf ho. So just putting this out there. You know, before I get into possible alternatives, just some concerns with the way things are going right now. This is not very visible, but I've actually taken this from the idea paper, and in that paper itself, the quality uploaded there was poor, so hence this is bad. But basically, it's the composition of the committee that looked into this whole concept paper, and I think many others have also said this. Ajayji just said it just now, that there is no farmer representation. And I will come back to this, and I also would reiterate what Ajayji also was saying, that if there are any further advisory committees, steering committees being formed, I hope the government considers having farmer representation there. And the other issue also, again, this was discussed a bit even earlier. The National Commission on Farmers is more, I think, more popularly known as the Swaminathan Committee report. This is the definition that, you know, all these categories of people mentioned there are farmers as per the Swaminathan Committee report, which was adopted by Parliament. So Parliament has agreed that this is the definition of farmers. So if you are creating a farmer database, why are we only looking at the landed farmer? Or even if I am a land-owning farmer, if the land is in my name, it is most likely that most of the farming is actually being done by my wife. Farming is a highly feminized profession now. More than 50% of the agricultural work is done by women. And very often they don't have land in their name. They are being excluded. Sharecroppers and tenant farmers, Harsha was talking about. So Again, we are only looking at data of land ownership, we are not looking at cultivator data. And if we want to be providing advisories, do you want to provide the advisory to the person actually doing cultivation? Or if I am an IT professional who owns agricultural land, I am in the US, someone else is doing agriculture, and you're sending me the advisory in the US, what's the point? So who are the actual cultivators? Adivasis who may be engaging in Jhum cultivation in Northeast, or even if they are collecting NTFP produce, minor forest produce, they are they are also farmers, they are also in food production. Agricultural labor is again going to get missed out from this. Livestock farmers are not going to be there, fisher folk, beekeepers, pastoralists. So I mean, this has come up earlier. I don't want to belabor the point. But in the interest of offering an alternative, Dr. Saurabh Garg was a part of the committee earlier when he was Secretary Agriculture in Odisha, and now he is the CEO, I think, of UIDI in Delhi. There was a Kalia scheme there. Various income support schemes are there. PM Kisan is there, Raitu Bharosa, Raitu Bandhu. Many of them are land-based, but Kalia is not land-based. It's an example of how to build a farmer database which is not centered around land records. So can we do this nationally? I mean, one state has done it. Why can't we do this nationally? Why does the farmer database have to be centered around land records? One, of course, is the various issues with land records themselves and digitizing. But even if all that is fixed, I'm just conceptually questioning the need to develop a farmer database around land records. The other thing that has been talked about a lot today is consent. And consent is pretty central to most data protection legislation that has various drafts have been proposed, and even internationally, most data protection laws are framed around consent. But how real is this consent? I mean, I'm not against consent at all. I certainly want consent to be there, but it's not enough. 2-3 examples. One is last year when WhatsApp changed their terms and conditions, there was a huge uproar. Many people didn't like it, but WhatsApp said it's my way or the highway. You know, accept these new terms and conditions, give your consent. So, you know, what is consent then really? How many of us have really stopped using WhatsApp? Or what may probably be a more relevant analogy even for farmers is the experience that Uber and Ola drivers have had. Initially, when when the apps were newer, the rates that they got were good. They invested in cars and they have EMIs. And now once you drop the rate, can they really opt out of the system? They have to pay EMIs. They are locked in. So what consent are you talking about? They don't. The choice to leave the system is an illusion because you have to be in the system in order to participate. So when it's my way or the highway, then the question really is, what is the option being offered for which you have to provide consent? So the question really then is, do I have a say in the terms and conditions that WhatsApp is giving? Do I have a say in the terms and conditions that Uber or Ola are offering? So how do we ensure that whoever the stakeholder is, whoever the user is, has a voice in deciding those terms and conditions, and it's not just that somebody else is deciding and take this or leave this. That's not how it should be. There should be some space for negotiation. How do we ensure that? So in the interest also of, since you're talking about the future, offering an alternative, this is a slogan that got popular during the American Revolution, where they said no taxation without representation, because the idea was that then there were British colonies and tax was being collected from the colonies, but they didn't have representation in the British Parliament. So they said, "Aap hamara paisa le rahe ho, but we don't have a voice in governance." So can something similar be done in the digital realm? Can we say that if you're using my data, then I should have some representative who's there in the decision-making body that is deciding what is being done with the data? So this is something we have to consider, because again, when we are also talking about farm advisories, if you look at Amazon today, the top results, or even in a Google search result, the top results will be people who have paid to ensure that they are on the top. So if an agri-input company pays a lot of money and says कि आप farm advisory में मेरा advice दे दो, it's quite possible that this is going to happen. And I mean, most people in this room, I think, were also saying this, that the government extension system practically on the ground is, almost not there. Most of the extension work is done by industry, by the marketing field people who are doing marketing. And that is going to get replicated in the digital realm. So question one is the advisory based on a monetary incentive or is it based on science? Is the first question. The second question, I would say, since I am with the Alliance for Sustainable and Holistic Agriculture, is also the science. Is it the conventional high synthetic input science based on which the advisory is being given, or we would advocate for more sustainable options? So who's also deciding the science is another question, but I won't get too much into that. So the basic idea is we don't want to be replicating existing inequalities in the digital space. This is a chance to do something better. So how can we see if farmers can be given more voice and ensured that the playing field is more level towards farmers? Because when we say technology is neutral, I would say I don't want technology to be neutral. If something wrong is happening, we cannot say that technology is neutral and not do anything about it. I would like the technology to be biased a bit in the favor of the farmer. Why should it be neutral? And so because information is power, very often, I don't know if Rakshita is not here, otherwise one of the things that are being worked on at a state level are proactive online portals for proactive disclosure of information. So Rajasthan has a portal called the Jan Suchna portal. And we were trying to get information from the government of India through APIs on fertilizer disbursement so that the farmers in Rajasthan can know which retailer has how much fertilizer, how much have they sold. Those APIs were not given. I mean, a state government asked for APIs from the central government. APIs were not given. So information is power, and in such a paradigm, I would say, taking my argument forward, that what we should really look at is participatory governance. And this is not something new I am saying. These already exist in the physical realm. If we look at the ways APMCs are governed, there are farmers there are trader representatives, the laborers who work there have a representative, government officials have representatives. Or even if we look at other sectors, in the labor sector, there are Matadi boards in Maharashtra where employers have representation, workers have representation, and government officials are also there. Or if we look at education, there are school management committees that have been set up by as a follow-up of the right to education law. Parents, teachers, government officials, educators, and all are there. Or even if we look at bleeding edge digital technology, even in blockchain and all that, whether one believes that cryptocurrency should be legal, should be allowed, is a separate discussion, but there's a concept there called governance tokens. So if I have a stake in any blockchain system, then I also have a stake in the governance. I have a voice in the way that that system is being designed. So this is not something new that I'm proposing, and my argument is therefore that this is possibly a way forward we should consider, where if there is any system, if there is Uber, then Uber should have representatives of drivers, representative of riders. It should have management representation, obviously. So something like that. If an online digital marketplace is being designed, then buyers representative, farmers representative, management of that service provider, and so on. So this is the model I'm proposing, and I think I'm a bit over time, so I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll move on to the Q&A section, but we are very fortunate to have Mr. Ranveer here from Punjab Agro, and now of exactly this topic of how data and digitalization is being used to benefit farmers in a state. So I didn't realize it earlier. So I want to request him to tell us what he's doing for potato traceability that farmers can get a higher price. So I think these are things that are new. And so Ranveer, if you just take 2 minutes, and Bharat Krishak Samaj style, not Punjab style. So 2 minutes, we stick to 2 minutes. Just explain how you're using technology.
So basically, good afternoon everybody. To be very brief, so Punjab Doaba region produces the best seed potatoes in India. So that was being misrepresented by some traders in Agra, Gujarat, and UP. And it was where potato was being sold as a seed potato. So where our seed potatoes were at loss. So both farmers, the buyer farmer and the genuine seed producer was at loss. So the farmers came to us in Punjab Agro. So from last 4 years, we designed a very good traceability system. We are working with almost 3,000 seed growers in Punjab. So each generation is traced. We have built up very good data from last 4 years. So you get a QR code. Each bag has a QR code. You can, when you scan a QR code, you go back to the 4 generations from where the seed started, where it produced, when went to where, which cold chain, where it reproduced. So now with authenticity, a lot of spurious seed sellers have been eliminated from the system, and people are getting well benefited. Same we have replicated as organic farmers. So we are working with almost 9,000 farmers. We are giving them a QR codes which they can put on their packets, and we are aggregating them as a 5 Rivers brand in Punjab also. So you get a proper traceability and trust system available on each packet. So this has added a lot of value to the farmers. So if you see organic brands, one is the traceability and certifications available on the. So with the QR system, we can go back to the 4 or 5 years data that farmer has done it. Even photo of the farmer, the mobile number of the farmer, the geolocation of the farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranveer. So we'll take questions for the panelists, not for the moderator, but any questions we'll be happy to take. Yes, ma'am. Please introduce yourself and.
Hi. My name is Swaminathan. I'm a law researcher. Just a few comments on what's been happening. There's a hell of a lot to say, but I'm really confining myself to very little. The first thing I want to endorse what Nachiket said on consent and just take it a little further, because actually consent becomes irrelevant if we are talking about collecting data and then disseminating that data and then sharing it everywhere. Then the withdrawal of consent becomes complete nonsense. So we really need to think, consent can't stop with just that one point, nor can it not. We need to see that government today believes, and it has said that in its accessibility policy, that it owns data, that the property in the data is with the government. Nobody gave it to them, and it's just, since 2012, these claims have been made, and this is where we are now. So we have to first get the government to acknowledge that the state is a repository of our information. It's a custodian. It's being held in trust. It is not an owner. Because it is being seen as the new resource, this is where we are headed. The second thing is, I'm really wondering what is happening. There's very little evidence that is being produced that's being generated on many of these things. And when the evidence comes, what happens to it? Nobody looks at it. Throughout this, I've worked a lot on the UID system. And throughout today, I found people saying, I know you have the Aadhaar, and Aadhaar is fine. If you look at the CAG report, it is not fine. If you look at what is happening in the various courts, it is not fine. You have a case going on in the Supreme Court right now, which says that 4 crore people have been just knocked off the system, their ration cards have been taken off, and there has been nobody bothers to verify it. It's causing agony among people. So why are we going on saying that this is okay? And just a small clarification on that to Mr. Pramod, that the Supreme Court did not say that you should use the UID when it is beneficiaries. They said you can. And that can has been made into should by the state, and it's being put in every part of the system, creating a lot of trouble for people. And one last thing that I want to say is this, that tech and data, I think we shouldn't make these two synonymous. We are conflating too much. Technology is very useful. It's a question of how we use it. Data is being generated completely unthinkingly because we think it is a new resource. And I really think we need a larger discussion on that. But
we'll come back and we'll get you to get more time to speak. But definitely, Pramodji, I think so because of the farmer agitation, farmers are much more informed to ask more informed questions. And that's one of the things that has appeared from the farmers' movement last year. Yes. Just pass the Parminder ji ko de. So Parminder ji is not on the dais today, but I think so he's the architect for BKS is just sitting here with his name there, but it's you who
Thank
managed
you
it.
so much, Ajay. I was just wanting to add a point to Pramod ji who was sitting here, which point was made by Ajay and Nachiket, that basically if we were talking internally, what could be the outcome of this meeting? And I think if we achieve this much, that we start taking digital agriculture policy as an agriculture policy and not as a digital policy, we would have made a lot of progress. And I'm not blaming anyone. Technology always starts in that manner, where it looks more technical and then slowly, somebody said the difference between technology and social is when you start understanding technology, it becomes social. And we have also to make an effort that it becomes social. So both sides it works. So two things. One has been already said, that if you typically make an agriculture policy, you have a certain advisory groups and steering groups formulae. Just apply that to digital agriculture also. Don't think that digital agriculture is not understood. Everybody understands when it matters to them. The stake is there. And second is, again, it was spoken by Nandakumar ji also first, that the document should, even in business, the software documents are not shared. The business leaders don't read the software document. They don't read those boxes. They are presented exactly what will happen business-wise, what will happen to a supplier, what will happen, how connections will be formed. So we need that document of digital policy, that this is what is happening in this manner, and the annex could be all those beautiful boxes which people can go into. So these two things can be done. We are actually making a lot of progress. Thank you.
Yes. So Ramanji and then Harveer ji. Either Ramanji and then Harveer ji. So we ask quick questions so panelists get time to speak. So
one
after
is would like
Harveer ji,
to
then
understand
panelists can
from
speak.
Sachin the economic model of cost recovery for providing those technology-based services in the beginning and in the steady state situation. The second is, given that the title of this session is Future of Digitalization, one thing is upon us now is already this whole business of carbon markets, where farmers really are not going to be involved. So how do we deal with it? What is the governance mechanism for carbon markets? Is it something the government is thinking about? We may not have an answer here, but I think this is a very important point because it contributes to income of growers. The third is about consent. I understand Amex and MasterCard are not being allowed to issue cards in India because they don't want to keep the data in India. So clearly the government of India has a role to play where it chooses to do so. Right? And I think that's something that we need to keep impressing upon as we go forward. The ICR is a very good case for complete digitization. If there is any single source of truth, and I'm using the word truth very liberally, let's get ICR digitized. Let's get their services digitized. And then people can build on that because ICR services are all free. So that's something maybe the government can think about picking on. Last point, since the morning there's been a lot of talk about reference to class 10. When I was running a business about 15 years ago, horticulture business, we used to hire class 10 pass employees, paying them 6,000 rupees a month plus expenses, who would manage our crops in 2-3 villages. We were not expecting them to be crop doctors. What the point that Pramod made in the morning in his presentation about trust. The villagers would trust these people to share their problems openly and more frequently. And that's what, as companies, we could never get that information. Once you hear the problems through a trustworthy person, you can respond if you have the right intent. So class 10 has a lot of value, and and at the core of it is all trust. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Harveer ji, then because there seem to be no questions coming in, but comments coming in. But so we have time. We are on schedule. We'll take
I
time.
have a question. सिंपल क्वेश्चन है सचिन से जो है ईचोपाल 20 साल से काम कर ही रहा है, डाटा है, एवरीथिंग आप स्टार्ट करते हैं पहले पानी से और बेचने तक. कैन यू शेयर द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन? हाउ डू यू कैलकुलेट for a farmer which crop you buy, whether it is soybean or some XYZ? So, and is it because it will be very good to know for everybody, is it profitable as on date on MSP? I just want a minute detail because you do digitally everything very closely. That is a simple question I want to know because nobody believes CACP data or the cost of production. Another is Nachiket, I don't know from where you got this information that 50% agriculture is being done by women. You should go to the villages, see, right now harvesting is happening, the peak season, planting, harvesting, everything. I have never seen this. This is very exaggerated information, for me at least, which is directly connected to.
So I think so we'll come to Nachiket and Sachinji. If you could take a minute or two answering it, then we can maybe just go one more round before we start winding up.
We have been working very closely through, with farmers and so your question whether MSP is rough.
His question is, do you calculate MSP cost of, how do you calculate cost of
Okay.
cultivation?
Right.
Can
Yes.
I add to your question? Do you even need to calculate cost of cultivation? Because they are paying market prices. So I don't know, that's a different
So
way. of put-
both are two different things. So when we work with farmers in crop development, so we help them, in terms of increasing the yield and also see that there should be a cost benefit in the sense if farmer is spending more, so his return should be higher than what he is spending. So that is the principle. So we calculate, all the interventions. Like for example, we run a project called Bara Mahine Haryali in East India. So wherein we recommend farmers the right varieties, package of practices, lot of mechanization, like for example, zero seed drill, so that the sowing cost comes down, or plant transplantation, or direct seeded rice, and so on. So we calculate the cost in that case, both in terms of planting and what returns are coming to the farmer. And only those practices are recommended wherein cost benefit ratio is positive, in the sense benefit is more than the cost. What we have seen is that if farmer is completely adopting the recommendations, and these recommendations come from the ICR Institute, so I totally agree that ICR has a very excellent depository of knowledge, and all our technical knowledge, we collaborate and rely on them. So in these cases, what we have seen is that farmers with the complete adoption and also going for alternate diversification are able to almost increase their earnings by 100%. Now there are combination of it. The cost reduction comes around 15 to 20%, but productivity enhancement comes almost 25 to 35, 40, depending on the type of soil, the way farmer is able to adopt. So yes, there is a positive cost benefit, and we calculate in these projects. In terms of procurement, procurement is definitely as per the market prices, and so I agree. So your question is. Yeah.
So
Yeah, so farmer earnings are definitely, if you compare with MSP, they are in positive. That is one. And if you want the area specific data, I can definitely share. The example which I have just now shared was for UP and Bihar, not for Madhya Pradesh. So we are working in all these states. But I can definitely share, in case you want, I can share the area specific data also with you. We track it on every.
So thank you, Sachin. I'll help you with this.
One
We'll
more
move on.
answer. I think it was
No,
on
no,
the
I think
economic
okay,
model,
I'll
sir.
get you.
For advisory, we don't charge anything because what we believe is that that has been our principle. So we don't charge anything for advisory. So there is no economic model for this. Yeah.
How do you do the cost recovery for the technology-based advice?
Okay.
Your
So,
cost recovery.
right. So basically, as I said, that we don't charge anything or advisory for the farmer. So all these are investments. But the way we get benefited is that, like for example, the quality of produce when you buy from the farmer is definitely having a better quality, because farmer is able to preserve it well. Identity preservation we are able to do. Like for example, when we make Ashirwad Atta, we procure different varieties. So the identity preservation of variety is possible when you actually engage with farmers. you buy, you are able to store them properly. So those are the benefits which you get in the business.
Are you translating those increased benefits for higher income for the farmer or not?
No, no, farmer income is about what farmer is been paid. And for varieties, definitely the prices are higher than a conventional thing. Similarly, when we do food safe crop production, the prices are higher than the normal grades.
Thank you. Nachiket, would you want to come in? There was a comment, or because we could take it as, because there are no more questions, we could take it as, okay, Nankumarji wants to ask you a question. After him, okay.
Yeah, so I'm quoting a report, and if you share your email ID, I will send you the report. It's a research study, and the question is, I think, which part of India you go to, in Punjab, Haryana, where maybe a lot of agriculture is mechanized. Machines are also not made in a way that is women friendly, so men only will mostly use the machines. But if you go to most other parts of India, I would, at least from what I have seen from Rajasthan where I work, central Rajasthan, it's mostly women. But rather than he said, she said, I'm quoting a report, I will share the link to the report. You can take it up with the authors of the report if you have issues with the methodology.
So, Nankumar.
I just wanted to reply to Harveer. I think the problem is, what is agriculture? My counter question to Harveer would be, who milks all the cows in this country? Who collects all the eggs from poultry? And who sells all the fish? And I think the answer is there.
Even fodder is now being collected by the ladies. I mean, of course, Haryana Sarkar is not allowing farmers to sell fodder where they want to, but, and I don't know if that would be covered by the farm laws, but that's where we are. And definitely, Parminderji, we don't want the consultation on digitalization to be like it was for the farm laws. So we've learned from that process that collectively we made mistakes and we can resolve those mistakes while going ahead. I think I'll just give the last word to Dineshi. Last word. And then we...
Last word is a very, has a very different connotation, Ajay.
I'm giving it to you in that connotation that you think it is not.
Last word has a very different connotation, and I don't think we are going to have a last word in this particular meeting for a variety of reasons, etc. One, that all the stakeholders are not there, and all the relevant elements which we need to discuss with regard to digitalization in agriculture, or digital agriculture, or smart agriculture, or what not, precision agriculture, these terms need to be, they are black boxes to me as far as is concerned, and I'm not satisfied with if they continue to be used. Like Usha pointed out, the UID continues to be used as a case where there is evidence already, but in fact, similarly in the case of precision agriculture, or our ability to predict, independent of digital, also, and the digital will only enable to some extent as far as concerned, but we are really living in a world of uncertainty, extreme weather events. There are all kinds of pest management attacks happening, etc. We have to prepare for that. And I don't think digital alone is going to be the panacea or the magic bullet as far as it's concerned. Very much digital is needed, but as Parminder was putting it, that we need essentially to bring digital and agriculture together. And in both cases, there are uncertainty. Huge. Even in digital, there are models don't exist. The data analytics don't exist. If you look at the CSIR Fourth Paradigm Research Institute, which is in Bangalore, it's Dr. Prakash Rao and Dr. Ramesh's work on models, which are being used in the case of agriculture, how inadequate they are. We need to develop algorithms and data analytics for agriculture. So we do not have solutions. We are assuming that it's merely a question of putting together something which is already existing as far as concerned. And I'm afraid I'm reiterating that particular point, but I think that point is very, very critical. And if we do not involve ICR, not just digitalization, no, ICR should be part of all MOUs. Is that there? No, isn't there. Why are they not there? Why agriculture is if you build the success stories, how was the Indian pharmaceutical industry built, a pharmacy of the world? It was built because there was a research industry get together. In every firm, there was a CSIR person collaborating with them. Can we collaborate through ICR and ITC? I'm sure they can add value. I'm not opposed to them. But there should be a spirited public interest organization. They're not there. They cannot be allowed to have a free run. Sorry. You are redistributing benefits and costs, and companies will gain. At the end, farmers would lose.
No, I think hum honge kamyab. That was something that we learnt in school. So let's hum honge kamyab.
If you really follow the correct policy. The state and business are.
So we will call on Apar to give a vote of thanks. He's ex-director for Internet Foundation. Apar, thank you so much. And I would, as Bharat Krishak Samaj, I would say that I want to tell the partners that this all would not have been possible without you. Thank you for this opportunity that we could work with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jakarji. We'll continue working together. I think if we have not made a start today, we've made progress. I think this is the first time there have been members of government, senior bureaucrats who've come. We've had an opportunity as civil society members, some parts of civil society I'll highlight, only some parts of civil society experts having this kind of conversation, which is free, frank, and candid. These kind of forums need to be preserved, and we should continue focusing on our engagements, expanding the scope of this engagement. It benefits all of us. The few things I'd like to say in my vote of thanks are essentially a repetition of what has already been said. Hence, I'll keep my words short. The first thing I would like to say is that we are noticing a very high peak in heat in March, which has been seen for the first time in 122 years. This is having an impact on the wheat crop. It's having an impact then downwards on procurement, where the MSP price is not being provided to farmers. The second thing I'd like to say, which may seem disjointed, is a lot of farmers don't have smartphones. Basic underlying network connectivity also does not exist in villages. Parliamentary responses show that large number of villages, hundreds of them, maybe in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, maybe in Rajasthan, as per the last session itself, do not have that infrastructure. Hence, digitization, as we look towards the future, is going to be a part of that. It's going to be a piece of the solution. It's not going to be the complete solution itself. That is a reminder. I know most people already know that, but I'm reminding that because digitization today, in each sector as we are seeing, at least from our bias as we sit at IFF or as digital rights organizations or those who are studying digitization, is in every core sector of human activity being pursued by the union government. Health, education, labor. Hence, digitization should not overpower the underlying necessities of that sector of human activity itself. Now, finally, I'd just like to end by saying that excellent points have been made here. I think Nachiket has already indicated that we'll be creating a recording and sharing it. There's also certain remarks. We'll try to prepare a report. And I think in the spirit of this engagement, sharing these kind of views, looking towards further engagement. One final thing I'd just like to end with, it's some learnings we've taken in the past, some learnings we've ignored in the past. For instance, if we look at our green revolution and what all it has given us, it has taken away some things as well. And here I'll quote from an EPW article. It's called India's Green Revolution. It's by Richa Kumar. Adoption and institutionalization of productivity-oriented green revolution agriculture increased yields, but the multi-crop model existing in different agro-ecological conditions have been neglected at the cost of environment and socio-economy, adopting a monocrop model heralded by the Green Revolution. This should just give us pause for thought. Thank you so much.
So please join us for tea, and like all meetings, what comes after the meeting is more important than the meeting itself. So hopefully we will, Pramodji, we will collect our things together and we'll come to you with our points that have raised here. Next meeting, hopefully we'll have in the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare with the teams. Thank you so much.